The howling of the wind was nearly overwhelming, as Clara sat nervously behind the wheel of her beat-up sedan, watching the darkened landscape blur by. It was supposed to be a routine trip, a weekend getaway with her 3 friends to unwind at a lakeside cabin tucked away in the wilderness of northern New England. Despite her sense of unease, they'd laughed off her earlier premonitions. The idea of getting away from the city had seemed too good to pass up, but now, lost amid the swaying pines and shrouded roads, Clara regretted not pressing her concerns. Up ahead, the narrow road forked into 2, neither path marked by any discernible sign, only a fleeting sense of familiarity. "Watch out!" Ashley shrieked from the passenger seat, jolting Clara from her thoughts. She slammed on the brakes just in time to catch a glimpse of a deer frozen in headlights' glare before it bounded back into the forest shadows. Breaths held tight. They sat in silence for a moment. "That was close," muttered David from the back seat, trying to maintain a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Matthew, tapping incessantly on the window, gestured impatiently for them to get a move on. The road was eerily deserted, a creeping fog curling around the gnarled trees lining the edges. Clara took a deep breath and opted for the left path, her instincts screaming in opposition, but what choice did she have? "Keep an eye out, everyone," she instructed, her voice steady despite her thumping heart. The group needed her to stay calm, after all. They drove on. The cabin marked on their GPS was still another 30 minutes away. As they progressed, the woods seemed to tighten around them, the sky swallowed by the branches overhead. Time crawled until the engine coughed and the car stuttered to a halt. "Oh, come on!" Clara groaned, twisting the keys in frustration as the engine sputtered but refused to start. With night fully descended, their only illumination came from the scattered moonlight dripping down through the canopy. "Do we have a signal?" asked Matthew, holding his phone up to the windshield. But the screen remained void of bars, a reminder of their isolation. The 4 exited the vehicle, breath mingling with frosty air as they glanced nervously at each other. "We can't be far off, can we?" David said, his voice faltering slightly. "Maybe a walk might clear our heads, figure out what's wrong." With flashlights in hand and the chill nipping at their heels, they ventured down the path on foot. The road narrowed progressively, an oppressive silence bearing down on them, until it enveloped everything besides the occasional snap of a twig. A rustling in the underbrush stopped them cold. "Probably just another deer," said Ashley, her voice lacking conviction. As they pressed onward, the path seemed to dissolve, the scenery, a confounding tapestry of repetition, beginning to twist in impossible ways. Yet, as their anxiety mounted, a beacon of illumination materialized through the trees. "There!" Clara exclaimed, pointing toward the soft glow. They quickened their pace, hope tethering them toward salvation. The path burst open into a small clearing, where an old, dilapidated cabin stood hunched in the woods. It wasn't their cabin, the structure's decrepit state evident even through the darkness. "That's not it," muttered David, but they knew they had nowhere else to go. Despite the exterior's foreboding chill, lights were on inside, a strange warm glow that suggested occupancy. "Hello?" Clara called, her voice swallowed by the restless wind. Knocking on the door echoed into the forest, but there was no reply. Steeling themselves, they crept inside. The interior exuded an unsettling air of timelessness, as though suspended between eras, antique furniture covered in dust and shadows cast in impossible directions. Perplexingly, the air was warm, the crackling of a fire coming from a hearth filled with ancient logs glowing rhythmically. "This is creepy," Ashley whispered, her flashlight beam tracing over the faded portraits lining the walls. Images of stern-faced figures spanning generations stared back, each gaze profound and hollow. "Maybe we should just wait until morning," David suggested, the fire's thrumming warmth cutting through their numbing cold. Matthew and Ashley nodded, too restless to argue against the temptation of rest, while Clara tried to shake off a sense of waking nightmare. The 4 settled uneasily into the main room, their initial relief tempered by the haunting weight of unease that refused to dissipate. Clara's eyes roamed, tracing unfamiliar lines of dappled shadows dancing across the ceiling. As the others slowly succumbed to a restless slumber, Clara fought the lure of sleep, clutching tightly to consciousness. A scuffling intruded, soft and stealthy overhead, and she wondered if it was merely her frayed nerves conjuring sounds. Her breath caught as the noise grew more corporeal. Footsteps, deliberate yet erratic, pacing the wooden planks above. Heart pounding, she hesitated, then rose with quiet determination, steeling herself to explore. In the flickering glow of the fire, Clara picked her way to the base of the staircase, every creak a spine-tingling echo of dread. She hesitated, sparing a glance back at her friends oblivious beneath their blankets. In one of her backpack's pockets, she found what she needed: a small pocket knife and her flashlight. Items trivial in the safety of daylight, but reassuring now. Knife in one hand, light in the other, Clara stepped cautiously onto the stairs. Each step trebled her sense of impending confrontation with the unknown, the hallway's shadows bending forward as though reaching out to ensnare her. The footsteps she'd followed had ceased, leaving only silence to mock her hesitation. One door, slightly ajar and emanating a colder draft, caught her attention, its frame draped in obscurity unlike the others. With measured breaths, she approached, took hold of the handle, and pushed it open. The room was small, austere, holding only a single chair centered on the worn rug. Upon its seat sat a lone, weathered music box, its coppery sheen marred by age. Clara's pulse surged as she approached, casting her indistinct reflection on the tarnished surface. It played on its own, soft, discordant notes that rose unbidden, sending shivers skittering down her spine. Mesmerized, Clara watched the lid's interior linger open, its delicate figurine twirling to the irregular tempo. A chill crawled along her skin, her senses screaming awareness as she felt another presence nearby, intangible yet unmistakable, encircling her in its watching observance. Clara turned, the shadows clashing against her light as they skittered away to reveal an empty space. Her senses taut, she reached for the music box then, compelled by curiosity and the urgency to dispel this haunting mystery. Her fingers brushed the cool metal, shaking off hesitation as she twisted the key. Music danced anew, a gentle melody fraught with malevolence. As the tune glanced its eerie notes upon the silence, Clara became aware of a paradigm shift. The room warped perceptually, a dense, suffocating pressure that seemed to not only obscure her vision but breach her thoughts. The room's confines vanished momentarily. In their place surged shifting ephemeral images. Scenes unspooled before her eyes. A tapestry of noise and laughter, anguish and loss, all cascading into a nonlinearity she couldn't grasp but felt deeply embedded within. And at the nexus of this kaleidoscope stood the occupants of the portraits, faces now animate, echoing familiarity. So many years separated from this time and space, their lifeless gazes had watched unerringly, marking the span of their imprisonment. Renewed tension coiled within Clara. There was dissonance here, a demand underlying each musical rise and fall, weaving through ages of entrapment. Emboldened by determination rather than dread, Clara wound the box once more, each revolution slowing the breath of the house that hovered beneath. She felt the shift suddenly, as though the tether binding time and place released its hold. The glowing, malignant warmth chilled. A haze that had suffused the air fractured as reality resumed its unwelcome stripe. With the music's cessation, the visions dissolved and silence rushed back, an oppressive exhalation through unseen lips. Yet the presence lingered, distinct in its scrutiny, seething beneath consciousness and room alike. Fear-stricken yet guided by intuition, Clara closed the music box and pocketed it, heart hammering with the knowledge of intrusion she didn't understand. Retracing her steps down to the main floor, a movement caught her peripheral, of shadows regathering where they had once dispersed. Simultaneously, the floor emitted a groaning sigh, reverberating beneath her feet, a semblance of acknowledgement, the very house breathing deep within its heart. Nonetheless, Clara swallowed down residual fear, descending back to where her friends lay unaware. "Clara?" The soft voice startled her as Ashley's eyes opened, concern etched across her features. "Everything all right?" Ashley mumbled, twisting onto her elbow as Clara knelt nearby. "Yes!" Clara lied smoothly, smiling like dawn on a reluctant horizon. She sealed away the unnerving confidences of the night, her mind still reverberating echoes of the music box's tune, and with a courage that belied her quivering spine, Clara vowed to herself to solve the enigma at sunrise. When morning broke, fragile threads of hope interlaced with dappled warmth. The woods still clung to their secrets, and though shrouded in doubt, Clara felt the cabin's spell at once receding and burrowing deeper. They would find their way back to their original destination eventually, but not before unveiling the path that led through the whispers haunting this place. The house, dormant as always, still held its own story secret and elusive. Just as the music box nestled quietly in Clara's bag, a haunting symphony of dreams and echoes wrapped with old tales that refused to stay silent. As they embarked on the return journey, Clara held this knowledge close, keeping its melody alive, not willing to dismiss or forget the omnipresent watcher in the shadows nor the truths it wished to whisper.